We're going to talk about rats. And I'm not Lil Bootsy, so it's not those type of rats. We're also going to talk a little bit about the combine that's going on. We'll do it in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, good people? Thank you for joining me, Tony Wiggins, here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. Just a quick reminder, we are also free on all platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, it's free. That's right. You don't have to pay for it. And also, the YouTube page is alive and kicking. New people come in every day. Make sure you like and subscribe on the YouTube page as well. The podcast is audio and video for everyone involved. If you're new here, welcome. I would tell you to kick off your shoes and relax your feet, but as you can see, if you're on YouTube, my background is not a living room today. We're just hanging out in front of this wall like New York people do. All right, so here's what we're going to get to. We're going to talk about rat infestations and why context is so important. And then we're going to go segment 2 and 3. We're really just talking about the draft and the prospects and asking this question. Will you see the Jaguars' first round pick at the combine? Yes, you will see him at the combine. Who will it be and why? Talk about all of that here today on Locked On Jaguars. First and foremost, the NFLPA, I guess, released a anonymous questionnaire, I guess, that they put out to players to gauge how they're being treated and what they thought of their team and their facilities. And apparently rats came up in Jacksonville. There was a rat infestation allegedly in the locker room and in the clothes hampers. Let me tell you why it's a big deal and why it's not. One, it's a big deal because I detest rodents, right? I don't like rats. And when I first saw it, I was like, yuck. I promise you I'd have changed my clothes in the car, man. I ain't going in there with no rats. How are there rats in their locker room? Well, for y'all that don't know, the Jaguars actually, until I'll explain all of it here in this segment in just a second, but I have to preface this by telling you that the Jaguars locker room is in the stadium that they play in. It's also in the stadium where other events happen. And where other events happen and where the games are played, there's a lot of food thrown away, a lot of food stored, a lot of stuff swept that might get missed, I would imagine. So I'd imagine the rats are there because of that. The first thing you think of when you think of rats in the locker room, why is the facility so nasty? The facility's in the stadium, man. That's what it is, right? Every team doesn't have that. And pretty soon the Jaguars won't have it. Because this is the context I'm talking about. There's a whole damn facility being built, and it's been being built since before the start of last year. A new training, practice facility, all of that stuff. So to say that it's an F is a little bit of right nowism. The context is they spent over $100 million building the solution to that problem, and it's right there in your face. So the thing about a little survey, it doesn't mention that, right? So we think that those problems will be alleviated at this point next year. Or I think at the start of training camp when this thing's open. They will no longer practice and play and dress and lift weights and shower in the same place where the games are played, where there's food all over the place and wasted food all over the place. I'm going to tell you something. If you're eating right now and a crumb drops on your chest, you can best believe If you never get it up, a good old rat's going to come and eat it, right? So, as much as I detest rats and I hate them and I think they're filthy, I don't like snakes, also don't like crocodiles and alligators, right? I have to say that's a little bit misleading because the Jaguars are literally and have been literally building an entire facility to accommodate their players. So to think that the team gets an F for having a bad facility, it's not really, it's really out of context, right? When you really think about what they're actually doing for the players, it's right there where the players park their car. They see it every single day, right? So there you go. Rat infestations be damned. As long as I'm not in the press box and the rat runs across my lap, I'm fine. Okay. I used to deliver bread back in the day. This was 22 years ago. I was a bread man while I was a barber and while I was doing radio. I had a bunch of jobs, man. We used to see rats on the back of our truck. You open that door and you hope one of them wasn't in there because you didn't leave anything on the truck because you weren't allowed to. Because if you did, there was going to be a bread party on your truck and every rat in the neighborhood was going to be on there. And when I'm talking rats, I'm talking about the ones that cats run from, right? Well, I checked and checked and checked, loaded up, went back and did my paperwork, closed it up, and was riding down. If anybody's familiar, it's the Arlington area here in Jacksonville. It's riding down the street, my little window open in my big box truck, and a rat ran across my shoulder and jumped out the window and committed suicide. And I hit the curb and I almost killed myself when I realized what happened. And I literally had the shakes and the creeps all day. So that's why this story means something to me, because it makes it sound as if the Jaguars don't care about their players and there's rats running all over the place. Not true. Not true. They're building a whole big old facility right outside that's going to be one of the nicest in the league. In fact, I heard they got the plans and the blueprints from the Miami Dolphins. It's going to look just like that one. So that won't happen much longer and won't be the case for much longer. Now let's talk some combine stuff. Now that we've talked rats, it's crazy, but it is what it is, man. I got to give it to you. And maybe it's because I wore the skull cap today and I'm sitting here and my head's hot and I'm talking about rats, right? Um, we're going to talk combine. We're going to talk players. We're going to talk who did what on the first couple of days of the combine. We'll do all of that in just a second. Here on Locked On Jaguars out there, let you know that today's sponsor is Built Bar. That's right. Looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you gotta try a Built Bar. What makes Built Bar so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. So I can really stop right there, but I won't, because they have absolutely great flavors. They're unbelievably good. Flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond, right? And then the macros are crazy good, only 130 calories and 4 grams of sugar with a whopping 17 grams of protein. Now, all of that and 100% real chocolate, is that enough for you? Get this. You can go to built.com like I've always told you to. And now you can also go to Walmart and walk into the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built Bar, a 4-bar box of cookies and cream, double chocolate or coconut puffs. And if you're close to a Sam's Club, run in and grab a 13-bar box with our hit flavors, brownie, batter, and churro. You can thank me later for putting your own with Built Bar, the best protein bar in the world. All right, running it down here on Locked On Jaguars. We talked enough about rats. Once again, not people that deal with the police. I'm not Lil Bootsy. I am, however, Tony Wiggins, the host of Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast, where it's your team every day. And we always thank you for making us your first listen. Listen, I watched the defensive linemen and the linebackers work out so far. It is amazing how athletic and fast a lot of these guys are. Nola Smith ran a 4.39 at 6'3", 238 pounds. And folks are saying, yeah, but he's only 238. Listen to me, man. 4.39 is fast. I don't care if he was 198. 4.39 is a very, very fast time, especially for a guy that's going to be chasing down people. And this tape backs this up because if you look back at the national championship game, not this past season when they played Ohio State, but the year before when they played Georgia. And I remember Bryce Young got loose and was running towards the sideline, and Nolan Smith stopped what he was doing, turned, and chased Bryce Young to the point where he could not get that corner. So he has real speed. Would he be in line to be picked by Jacksonville? It's possible because at this point, when you're on an improving football team that is going to be good or people expect to be good, you expect the first round pick to start, right? But he doesn't necessarily have to. He just has to be a guy that plays a lot and is in your rotation. And I think Nolan Smith could very well be one of those people that they choose. Keon White, the big edge rusher or the big lineman from Georgia Tech, did not run, but boy, did he look good doing everything else at 6'6", 285. Woo! Unreal how absolutely good he looked. Some of these people, you have to try to imagine them in the Jaguars system, but you also have to imagine that the Jaguars, who are very good at doing what they do, will sit here and say, just take him. We'll figure it out, man. That's what he kind of did last year with Trayvon Walker. Just take the talent. Just take the talent. I can't imagine what the Jaguars will look like with Keon White, even though I don't think he's going to be there when they decide to pick. But I can't imagine what they would look like with a guy like that on their team. This is just it's just part of the evaluation process. Will McDonald, the fourth. Oh my God. Guy that went to college, he was 206 pounds as a freshman. He's about 240 right now or somewhere like that. Quick off the ball, long arms. I could see him being another guy that the Jaguars look at. I could also see the Jags coming back and maybe trading up in the second round and drafting a guy like DeJuan Jones, who, if they do not sign Jawan Taylor and Walker Little and Cam Robinson played the first year, you're going to need that swing tackle. Now, the swing tackle doesn't necessarily have to be a guy that can play multiple positions, even though that's really the spirit of what that position means when you say swing tackle. But in the Jaguars case, they'll have a right tackle in Walker Little. This is assuming that Jawan Taylor isn't here. That might be more suited to play left tackle. So therefore, like if something happens with Cam Robinson and he can't go for a day or two or a game or two, then they'll insert DeJuan Jones if they got him at right tackle and then move Walker Little to left tackle. Okay, that's the way it works. So he can be their third offensive tackle. I wouldn't necessarily call him a swing tackle because it doesn't really fit the definition, but it would still give them some versatility to be able to move Walker Little over. It takes a special player to go from side to side too. So that tells you what the Jaguars really think about Walker Little. And DeJuan Jones is 6'8", about 370 pounds. Unreal size, but I do anticipate that when you look at Doug Peterson and his background, eventually these linemen are going to be bigger. Now you go, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Jawan Taylor's 325, Cam's 325 or 330. Brandon Sheriff is in the 315, 318 area. How much bigger do you need to get? You've seen the Philly, and have you seen Kansas City? That's how much bigger they could get. Where everybody across that line, the average lineman would be about 325. That's not really the case right now because Luke Fortin is a little bit over 300. I think he's like 310. And then I think Ben Barch is like 310. The Jaguars are going to get big, physical, and they're going to get deep on that offensive line eventually. So we all have to expect that they're going to be looking at folks like that. All right, I'm going to tell you what's coming up here further into the weekend with the Combine. And I'm also going to give you an idea of some other names, some people that the Jaguars may or may not be interested in and how they're doing at the Combine. We'll do that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, rolling on here on your third and final segment. Man, I really do love Combine because you can sit wherever you are. You can be at work. You can be at home. You know what's going to happen. You're going to pay attention to this Combine and be entertained all weekend. Somebody did ask me, do I think Jalen Carter's misdemeanors will hurt his draft status? Nah. I think people that want to move out is going to move out. I think somebody may move down and still take him. I think he's going in the top 4. It's 2 misdemeanors. While the circumstances surrounding it is extremely serious, they are extremely serious, and I don't want to downplay them. I just know guys in the NFL, I've seen them give a whole bunch of opportunities to guys who were less talented and, quite frankly, um, did did more egregious acts than what is alleged or accused for Jalen Carter. So I expect him to go off the board in the top 4. Another guy I watched is Lucas Van Ness. Now, I'm a little bit afraid that he never really started at Iowa, but he played a lot, but he got a lot of sacks. 6'5", 269, and moves so good, man. I think he's another guy that might go off the board a little bit earlier than the Jaguars will pick. If the Jaguars going to move up, this is the type of person it's going to be, because it's looking like the guy that's going to be on the board when they pick, they're going to be a couple of corners, right? And Osiris Torrance, who we've all seen mocked to the Jaguars a lot. Osiris Torrance is going to be a guy who might be around too. You'll get the tight ends. So the tight ends, the corners, and a guard, a couple of guards. Steve Avila will probably be there. The Jaguars are going to have to really, really make a choice of guys that I think they probably like. And then they're in a little bit of never land, because they might be picking a little too late at 56 to get another dude. So here's what I think might happen. I think you might see a little bit of a trade down and then a trade up. And what I mean is, trade down, get some extra artillery into the top of the second round, then trade up, use the artillery to come back up towards the middle. So if the Jaguars end up with a pick in the low 30s or the high 30s, like 33, 34, 35, and then turn around and end up with, say, 40 or 42 because they use that artillery to come move up. So give up the first and the third. Well, the first and the extra pick that you get, the third. So come down, use that pick, and then take your later pick, or take those 2 third-round picks, considering that you'll get a third, and then try to move up into the second round. I expect that the Jaguars will have 3 picks in the top 65. How they're going to do it, I don't know, but I really believe they're going to hit a hot spot here with guys that they really like. Some of these pass rushers, maybe another tight end, an offensive guard, a young versatile player that can move sideline to sideline, and then of course a corner, somebody that can play the slot, but is not just a pure slot guy. He's a person that can play the slot, but then can move out. Garrett Williams is one of the people that I keep talking about that I believe can do exactly just that. So it's going to be extremely interesting to see exactly how the Jaguars decide to move once the draft starts. It's easier to do mock drafts with the Jaguars right now because we all know they're not going to be as active in free agency. That comes from the mouth of Trent Baalke. That comes from common sense that tells you that you're just not going to do that. You're not going to be re-signing guys the way that they re-sign guys and trying to just run it back and then go out and sign a bunch of dudes in free agency. Plus, they don't have a lot of salary cap space. So I do look for them to make another push to try to get Jawan Taylor done before free agency starts. At this point, I'm not optimistic that is going to be successful, that push is going to bring about anything, or Jawan staying here without testing the market. I don't think that's going to come into fruition. I really believe that at this point, it's just going to happen. Jawan Taylor is going to test the market, and we'll just have to wait and see if the Jaguars are able to compete in that market, or will they not compete? A lot of talk about traits and Trent Baalke and whether or not Keely Ringo is a guy that he likes. I can tell you what, when you look at the traits and the athleticism and the size and the length, there's no doubt that Keely Ringo fits. What you have to wonder is, when they really, really address the tape, are some of the concerns that a lot of people had about Ringo with the change of direction and He has straight line speed, but is he instinctive and all of that stuff? So lots of questions. It'd be a trip though if the third year in a row they tap into the University of Georgia and get a player because Georgia has recruited a lot of big, tall, fast guys that really fit those traits that Trent Baalke wants and likes. One name that's very intriguing, and I want y'all to pay attention to as a late second or a third round pick is Robert Beal. He actually led Georgia. He didn't start the year before last, but he led Georgia in sacks the year everyone said Trayvon didn't get sacks, right? Well, Robert Beal was their leader in sacks. He ran really well yesterday as well. 6'4", right at 260 pounds. Really, I think his best football is ahead of him. But he's sort of this year's Quay Walker. And what I mean by that is he's the guy that nobody talked about. And Channing Tindall was like that too. He's the guy from Georgia that no one really talked about, but he comes out here and he works out really well, and he might be a little bit of a sleeper for the Jaguars. So peep that. Gervon Dexter looked good. However, at 6'6", 300 and some odd pounds, his arms were not 33 inches, and the 33-inch threshold is where everyone talks about Trent Baalke and what we mean by traits when it's time to draft people. They don't need a three technique right now because they re-signed Roy Robinson Harris, but that Clancy kid out of Pittsburgh is making people wonder, do we have another situation like Aaron Donald or John Randall where a guy's size is going to make us forget about his productivity? I don't think the Jaguars will be interested because, once again, they have an athletic profile that it's Khalifa Clancy. The Jaguars have a athletic profile, pretty much. I don't think he fits it. Defensive backs are running, so I'm going to take a look at it right now. We'll be updating. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Shop Talking Wig, and take care of each other. Have a nice weekend. Enjoy the combine, and I'd like to see those big boards and those mock drafts start to get posted and come up. Make sure you check us out every single day here on Locked On Jaguars, where it's your team every day. And once again, thank you for making us your first listen. Until next time, I'm Tony Wiggins. We'll see you here on Locked On Jaguars.